hope you guys have your journals and something to drink ready because we are going in. Hello everybody and welcome to this more podcast style episode. Today we're gonna talk about the New Year's preparation and what I'm doing, how I'm journaling to prep for 2026. So grab yourself a journal or a post-it so you can take some notes along, and also maybe something to drink so that we can have it extra cozy. I actually did not get out of my pajama because I just wanted to have a little chat, you know, two besties just chatting about their past year and what their goals are for the new year. I will actually divide my New Year's prep series into two parts, and in today's part we are only looking back and only are talking about the past. And I know some of you might want to click off right now because you think, I'm not thinking about the past, I want to move on, I want to think about my future self, about the future goals. But I believe that it is super important to reflect on the past year, to not only think about the goals that you had and how far you've come with them, but also in general to remind ourselves what we've been through this year, all the good and the bad moments, because you cannot think about the future you if you don't take into consideration the past you. There's no new year, new me. It's still the same old you, and that is perfectly fine. You don't need to be somebody new every year. But that's why it is so important to understand who you are currently so that you can have a better vision of who you want to become in the next year, of how you want to evolve and how you want to continue the process of becoming that version that you have of yourself in your head. So today is all about the past year, and I'm going to share with you all of my journal prompts, how I went about it, and also a fun little thing that I want to start incorporating now as a new tradition for the new year. I've actually done all of my journaling already, so I thought I would just talk you through it all and hopefully give you some ideas and some structure on how you can approach this yourself. Again, I think it is super important to reflect and think about the past year before we start thinking about the new year and our goals and visions. That is everything we're going to do in part 2. So definitely subscribe to this channel if you want to see the full process of me prepping for the new year. I'm a person, I get super overwhelmed when it comes to New Year's reflections and journaling about the past year and journaling about my wishes for the new year, because it just seems so exhausting to sit down for like several hours and just think about my life. So I am doing it a little bit differently. These are things that I do that you can do, I would say, within 1 hour. And I personally believe that this is enough time to get an idea and to remind yourself of what the year has been about. But obviously feel free to go more in depth anytime you want. But before we head straight into it, I just wanted to quickly take this moment to just say, what the fuck? What has this year been? How fast has this year gone by? I don't know how it feels to you guys, but to me it feels like every year just goes by quicker and quicker. And I think a huge reason in that is probably the fact that most of my days look the same. So it's very easy for me to just blur it into one big time chunk. But then on the contrary, every year so many like big things are happening as well in the world and in my personal life. So it's always a very confusing time, especially in December when I like look back on the year, because at first it always feels like the year wasn't as exciting. It feels like the year was kind of dull and just me living the same life that I'm always living. But then when I take my time to sit down and reflect, I realize how much has happened this year actually. So I want you to take your journal and take, I would say, around an hour of your time to sit down and think about the past year. And the first thing that I always do is write down a quick rundown of the year. This can very much differ in the length. This year it turned out to be 2 pages. Last year it was only half a page. But in this rundown, I am just going through the whole year very quickly, and I write down everything that has happened. From January to December, all like the bigger things that have happened, good and bad. I did so many things actually, and I didn't realize how much I have done this year, because sometimes I lose track of time and I don't realize that all of these things that I have experienced within the past year. And so I think it's really important to start with like a quick memory rundown of everything that has happened, just so that you actually know what was going on in your life and that you then can start reflecting on all the happenings. But yeah, this year, like, even though it's just 2 pages, reading through it is actually crazy to me because so many things have happened, and it's just fun to have it all in 2 pages because these are the pages that I love looking back on the most. It's fun to have these very compressed pages of everything that was going on in my life during that time. So highly recommend doing a little memory. So I can highly recommend, maybe I should just fucking take all of the pages out. So I can highly recommend doing a quick rundown of everything that you have experienced this year. And this is also the thing that usually takes the longest for me, because I have now started to do mainly list journaling prompts. Because as I said in the beginning, I get very overwhelmed knowing that I have to sit here for 3-4 hours thinking about my life, writing everything down, and it gets very exhausting to me. If you can do that, that is fine. You can turn all of these list prompts also into full paragraphs. But if you're anything like me, I hope you appreciate that these are only like very quick prompts that can help you to reflect and analyze your year without having to spend hours and hours writing everything down. So the next thing I wrote down were 3 highlights and 3 challenges of the year. I call it 3 challenges, which is essentially like the more bad times of the year. But I think in every bad moment there is something you can learn from. So instead of calling them lowlights or bad things that have happened this year, I decided to go with challenges because it just has a nicer ring to it, and it also shifts my perspective from the negativity to the positivity of what I've actually learned in those times. It's always a really hard thing for me to do, to just write down 3 things of each, because I feel like these highlight moments just put so much importance on these moments, and it's really hard for me to only think of 3 things that I want to highlight of the past year. But this year it was actually a lot easier than the past years because there have been some major things happening in my life, like my bachelor, for example. This was obviously a highlight, that I'm done with uni and that I did so well, and so this obviously belongs to my highlights. And then I won't read all of them to you because obviously these are personal, but for one of my challenges, I wrote down that the time between my bachelor and now has been quite challenging overall, because I think a lot of people can probably relate. I am out of uni. I don't work a full-time job at the moment, luckily, to be honest, but obviously that brings a lot of like uncertainty with it. And the reason why I didn't jump straight into a job is because I want to start traveling. But then a lot of things came up and I couldn't start traveling when I originally wanted to start my big trip. So now I had this like really weird time in between where I just didn't really know where I'm going with my life, if I'm doing the right things, if I'm on the right path. But I'm feeling much more optimistic now. I also have my trip booked. So in February, I'm back on the road again. I'm traveling. So it's all starting to make sense to me now, the way the year has gone. But there definitely has been times where it was just very overwhelming to be so uncertain in life right now. And after this prompt, I also wrote down a list of things that I'm proud of. I personally think if you choose only one of the journal prompts that I'm doing, it should be the what I'm proud of prompt, because I feel like a lot of people have the tendency to talk themselves down and to not be proud of themselves, which is so sad. And especially in December, when we see everybody only posting their highlights on Instagram, or we look back on our goals and think we haven't done enough, we haven't reached enough goals, it's so easy to talk down on ourselves and to not be proud of what we did achieve, because yes, sometimes you don't reach all of your goals. In fact, I don't think there have been a year where I have reached all of my goals. I'm happy if I reach 50% of my goals, to be honest. But that doesn't mean I haven't achieved anything this year, because sometimes the goal we set in the beginning of the year are not what will actually happen during the year. We can't look into the future. We don't know what life will have in store for us. And so it is so important to look back on the year without the judgment of if you reach the goals or not, and to just think about everything that has happened and think about the things that made you proud, and also all the challenges that you've overcome that you didn't even know you would have to face in the beginning of the year. But yeah, this year there have been a lot of moments where I actually am really proud of myself, how I handled certain situations, how I went about it. And this belongs in your journal. This belongs in your reflecting. This is so important that you acknowledge for yourself. And that's why I think this is one journal prompt that everybody should do at the end of the year. And then I have one last fun journal prompt that I am starting to do from now on every year before we talk about goals. I would advise you to think about your goals, if you reach them or not, what have happened with them, blah, 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 to the end of your journaling session. Because I think if you immediately start thinking about your goals, you might be disappointed. I don't know, maybe you've reached all of them and it will be the happiest time ever. But if you are like me, you have a lot of goals, you have very high ambitions and you rarely reach them. That sounded very sad, but it's okay. I know beginning of the year that I might not reach all of my goals. That's not the intention with my goals, but we're going to talk about my goals and the goal process for the next year in my next video. But that's why I just put it to the very end so that I can really focus on me and what I've done and how I was feeling instead of focusing on success or failure, if that makes sense. But the last fun journal prompt that I started this year, and I had a lot of fun doing it, was random memories. Again, it's just a list where I've wrote like a few sentences per bullet point. And I think this is such a fun list to incorporate in your yearly reflection because it gives you room to write down all of these random little things that have happened that might not be your favorite moments. And so I wrote down a bunch of random things that came up in my head, not in chronological order. There's no system here. Just to have a place where I can put all of the random fun things that have happened. And these are insiders I might not even understand in a year, but it's still fun to have them in the journal for now. And you can also obviously write down bad random memories. It doesn't have to be good. It can just be random things that pop into your head that you can remember the year by, that is more than just the goals you have reached or didn't reach. Alrighty, and the last thing I journal about in my reflection part of the journaling are my past goals. And as I said, before we think about the future and everything that is supposed to be there for us in 2026, we need to look back and see what has happened in 2025, because you don't go into the new year starting from zero. You already have your habits, you already have your successes, your lessons, your challenges, everything that has shaped you is still with you, and that won't go away. The clock strikes midnight on the 1st of January. So in order to get better, and with better I don't mean like career-wise, money-wise, obviously these can be great goals, but when I talk about getting better, I don't necessarily mean in a societal structure of whatever idea you have of a good person. I really am talking about what does the best version of you look like in all aspects. Health, relationships, yes, also career and finances, mental health, how you take care of yourself. All of these things are included when I say you want to get better. Okay, this is really an all-round look of your life and who you are as a person and how you can become a more aligned version of yourself, like the version you have in your head and the version you are right now, how we can bring them as close together as possible in the next year. I pulled out my list of goals that I did beginning of the year, and then I also looked through some of my morning pages from the past year just to really see what I was thinking about, what I was writing about, what was going through my head every morning that might have caused me reaching my goals or me not reaching my goals. And I just skimmed through it and looked for patterns, and one thing that has been reoccurring the whole year and basically my whole life ever since I got a phone is that I'm annoyed at myself for not getting my to-dos done because I got stuck doom scrolling or because I watched too many YouTube videos. And it's so, like, when I write it down every day, I don't really realize how often this thought of, oh, I'm so annoyed at myself because of that pops up into my head. But when I skim through these pages, I kid you not, it's on every single page. And that is something that now clearly shows me that I need to change something about that. And obviously I know that my phone habits are really bad. I think a lot of us probably have a very unhealthy relationship with our phones and our iPads. But reading it over and over again in my own handwriting has really shown me this is not a problem that has occurred over the past month. No, this is a problem that has been there for years. And I think I'm finally at the point where I'm so annoyed at it that I can find the motivation to change something about it. You know, like this example with the frog, like if you put a frog in cold water and let the temperature rise, it will boil to death because it slowly will get warmer and warmer and warmer and warmer, and the frog doesn't realize how bad it is until he's dead. But if you put the frog in cold water and then suddenly pour burning hot water on top of it, it will jump out because the change is so huge that the frog realizes that something bad is happening here. And that is similar to me and my phone relationship because it got worse very slowly and slowly and slowly. And also I feel like everybody else has the same problem. It's not like I'm the outlier with the phone addiction. So I didn't really realize how bad it got, and it felt very normal, so that on my day-to-day life I didn't feel bad about it. But now seeing this in my journal has really been like someone pouring boiling hot water over me, because I see the effect that it has on me, and I'm actually happy that I'm at a point where I'm so annoyed at it, because this is a negative motivation that I need to pull myself out of it. Sorry, I trailed off. This wasn't even about my goals. Anyways, I hope this story still helped you to realize something in your life. We're heading back to the original topic. I look through all of my journals. I look for patterns, good and bad, and I just wrote them down, and I don't have it with me right now, but I just wrote it down on a sticky note. You can obviously mark it up in your journal, but I personally like to keep the journals as they are because it's like a time capsule. I don't want to mess with it. Okay, so now that we have done our research on ourselves, the goal that we've set for ourselves for the year, and also the habits that we have created over the past year, we can go back and reflect on it all. So I will block it. I just do a little paragraph about just what I'm thinking currently about my goals, what I've reached, what I haven't reached. But if I have done progress, I would also write it down, because for me, goal making is not about just ticking off the goal. It's about the steps that I'm taking towards the goal. So maybe I haven't reached all of my goals, but if I'm already doing better than I've done last year, I have succeeded because I'm doing better and I'm going into the right direction. And then I also look at my goals and I think about, are these even my goals at the moment? Because of course, a year is a long time, so me at the beginning of this year might have had a different vision for myself than I have of myself right now. So it's totally okay that throughout the year you realize that the goal you have set yourself at the beginning of the year might not align with what you want during the year. And that is okay. That does not mean that you have failed your goal. That just means that you have changed, and there's no point in forcing yourself to achieve a goal that no longer aligns with the vision you have of yourself. So I really want you to look neutral at your goals without judgment, because even if you haven't reached goals, I'm sure you have taken steps into the right direction. And if you haven't, I would use this as an opportunity to think about why. Why didn't you take certain steps that would give you the opportunity to achieve those goals? Did you lack motivation, or were you maybe afraid of what it would mean to actually reach that goal? If it's a goal that you still want to achieve, try to figure out why you didn't do any progress in that goal. So instead of judging yourself for not reaching it, get to the bottom of it, why you didn't reach it. And then if there are goals you haven't reached, but you have made a lot of progress and you maybe reached 50%, 60% of it, to me, that's still a successful goal, because again, you did the right steps to get closer to your goal. And since we don't start from zero on January 1st, you can then continue to take further steps into the right direction for 2026 to fully reach that goal. So what I do is I write a quick paragraph about basically just what my thoughts are about the goals. It doesn't have to be long, it can be long, do whatever you want. For me, it was half a page and that was totally enough. And then I only have one prompt that I do with my goal making, and it is what has worked and what needs to change. And for me, what has worked really, really well this year are my morning pages. I don't think I have been this consistent with the habit in years, but the morning pages is something that I do every single morning, no matter how I feel. Like if I'm motivated or not, I will sit down and write these morning pages, and they have changed the way that I start the day so much that I genuinely believe that everything else that have happened in my life wouldn't have happened that fast or that well if I hadn't had done the morning pages. And then something that needs to change is definitely my screen time. I am too horrified to say out loud how high my screen time is, so I won't. But just know it's ridiculously high. I have done some changes the past week to keep it a little bit lower, and that has worked. So I'm feeling optimistic about the new year. But yeah, that's definitely something I need to work on, because I also know it doesn't make me happy. Like, spending this much time in front of a screen does not make me happy. So it's not only about productivity for me to change that habit, but also about my mental health in general, and just the way that I live my life and the stories I want to tell don't include me sitting in my bed glued to a phone screen. So we need to change that. And another thing that I want to change is my discipline. Because I'm currently working only a few hours for someone else, I work most of the days for myself. I work on my YouTube videos, I work on my Instagram videos, I work on my TikTok videos. I do all of the social media stuff, and I'm currently not earning much with it, and it's something that I hope it will change in 2026. But that's why I need better discipline. It's so easy to not show up for yourself. And I need to make myself a person that I think is worth working for. And that is something that I hope I can achieve in 2026, because my travels depend on it. Because obviously once I run out of money, I have to come back home. So yeah, if you're watching this and you like what you're seeing, then maybe consider subscribing, because it would help me out in achieving my goal of having this as a part-time income source, so that I can go traveling and show you and me the world. Alrighty, I think we're done. This is all that I'm journaling about as a way to reflect on my year. And now something I want to start doing is to create a memory board of the past year. I think we always tend to look into the future and we create our vision boards, which we are going to do in part 2. But we only look into the future and we use pictures that aren't our own, and through that we detach our vision from our own life. And this is fun. I love doing it and I will do it as well. But I was thinking, what is something that I can do at the end of every year that will kind of honor and celebrate the past year without already rushing to the new year? So I thought I would do a digital collage of my past year with photos that I've collected on my phone. Good moments, bad moments, whatever it is. You can also use quotes from Pinterest that align with your feelings of the year. And I think this is a very fun way to also visualize not only the future with your vision board, but also the past with this memory board. And it's just a cute little collection of moments that 2025 has brought into your life. You can obviously do it analog as well. I just think it's easier to collage everything digitally, but I'm thinking of printing it out in like an A4 format. Is this A4? I think it is. But I'm thinking of printing it out in an A4 format so that I can glue it into a double page of my journal, so that I have a little memory collage of the year next to my yearly reflection. And you can see the end result here, hopefully. Let me know what you think. I don't even know what I've created yet. But yeah, I think this is just a fun way to end this, like, looking into the past and looking on the past year and analyzing and reflecting it. I think I used the word reflecting so much in this video. I'm so sorry. Please let me know of other words that I can use instead of reflecting, because I'm getting tired of that word, and I think you do too. But yeah, I think this is a very fun exercise that you can do to end the whole reflecting phase of this new year preparation. And then in my next video, we are gonna talk about journaling prompts for the new year, what I do, how I set up my goals, what my vision board will look like, and also how I prep my journals and my calendar for the new year so that I set myself up for as much success as possible. So if you don't want to miss that, definitely make sure to subscribe and let me know down below what you think of all the journal prompts. If you have some prompts that you're doing yourself religiously at the end of the year, I would love to know. And I will see you in a few days with part 2 of my New Year prep series.